Good morning, third graders. Today, we're going to talk about some background for our weekly journey story that you will be listening to tomorrow. So, the title of this one, of our background today, is called Running Coast to Coast. And if we think back to our geography lessons that we had this year, when we talked about a coast, remember a coast was land that was right next to water. So if we think about from coast to coast, hopefully in your head, you're getting a mental picture of maybe the United States, where we have the West Coast and the East Coast, or the East Coast and the West Coast, where those two oceans touch up against the land of the United States. And in our story today, we are going to find out about a person who did just that, ran from coast to coast. Now, my first question for you today is, have you ever seen a race with this many runners in it? This is a picture of Grandma's Marathon, which happens in Duluth, Minnesota. And at the start of the race, here's the starting line, there is a large crowd of people getting ready to run the race. And you can see right now at the beginning, they're all really, really close together, and they're really, really tight because they had just started. But at the beginning of the race, all of these racers would be really close together. But when you run a marathon, you run 26 miles. And when you run 26 miles, you are going to have people who are going to be able to do that a little bit faster and a little bit slower. So as the race goes on, these people will spread out and they will not stay this close together the whole time. But at the very beginning of the race, this is a lot of people to start with. Now, a few other questions. So, a lot of people like to compete in many kinds of contests. And when you're competing, there's always a winner, and then there are also people who don't win. And the winner of the contest is considered to be the champion for that competition that you're in. This person might get a lot of attention for his or her achievement. So if they win the race, they might get a ribbon or a medal. They might have their picture in a newspaper, or they might be on the news, because it was a huge achievement to compete in that kind of a contest and then become the champion. Many athletes try and set a record. So a record is kind of something that needs to be broken. Maybe somebody the year before at Grandma's Marathon, for example, maybe they ran the marathon, the 26 miles in, I don't know, 6 hours, and that was the fastest amount of time. Well, now, if they want to try and beat the record, another athlete would have to do the race in less than 6 hours to set a new record. So a record might be for the fastest time that you finish a race, or for the longest distance that the race is. Maybe it's for the highest mountain that someone climbs. That's a record, and a lot of times athletes will set a goal to beat different records, or maybe even their own record. So I'm wondering, what do you think it takes to get ready for a race? If you're going to be in a race, just like I showed on the picture before, what do you think you have to do to prepare? Do you think if I found out that there was a marathon tomorrow morning, do you think I could just put on my running shoes and head to the race tomorrow morning? I don't think so. It takes a lot of preparation and getting ready to be in a race of 26 miles. That's a lot of things that you have to do to prepare your body and also your mind to be ready for the race. So, here are some things that you might need to do in order to reach this goal or to be ready to take on this race. So, for your mind, you might have to have a lot of positive thinking. If you tell yourself, I can do this, I can run this race, I'm going to be okay, you're going to have a good mindset to do the job. You need to have determination. You have to want to run. You have to want to get to the finish line. And you have to really concentrate on what is your goal. What am I going to do? And then you just have to not give up. So it takes some mind positive thinking and some concentration and determination, and telling yourself you're not going to give up to get your mind in a place to be ready to reach your goal. Also, you have to do some things for your body. It does take some practice. So, if you're going to run a marathon, you have to start maybe practicing um, taking some shorter runs. So, maybe today I'll try and run 3 miles, and then I'll keep working up to that. And maybe in a week, I'll try to run 5 miles. And you keep practicing and preparing little bits at a time until you can get up to that 26 miles. You need to eat the right food. You need to eat food that fuels your body and gives your body enough nutrients and energy to complete the goal. If you fill your body with a lot of junk food and sugar and soda and things like that, your body is not going to be well prepared to be ready to do the race. You will need to do some exercise. Maybe you need to lift some weights, drink lots of water, maybe do some stretching activities, have rest days and exercise days. And then also getting plenty of rest and plenty of sleep each night will help your body be ready to reach your goal of running that race. In this week's story, you are going to listen to a story about a man named Andy Payne. And Andy Payne was a runner. He liked to run, he enjoyed running, and he was a runner most of his life. But he decides he wants to compete in a race that is being run across the United States. So remember, I said from coast to coast. And this race was called the International Transcontinental Foot Race because he was running with his feet, running across the United States, transcontinental, across the continent. Now, here are a few pictures of Andy. So Andy Payne, he loved to run. He ran up and down roads of his hometown in Oklahoma. And he also ran in some other races, and he won many of these long distance races, but he had never run a race of this distance before. So he heard about this big race, and it was announced that there was going to be this race across the United States. It was going to start in California and all the way across to New York City. And it was going to be 3,400 miles. And he thought, you know what? I think I want to do this. There was going to be some prize money that was offered, and he wanted to run this race to win the prize money so that he could help out his family. And so he started this race in March. And in the third week of May, so all of March, all of April, and almost all of May, almost 3 months, they finally reached New York. He ran every single day for 3 months. Boys and girls, that's every single day for about 90 days. Almost, not quite 90 because it was the third week of March, but very, very close, 80 some days he ran every single day. There was about 200 racers that started at the beginning of this competition, and by the end of the race, there were only 55 people that were able to finish it. So that's truly amazing that they were able to continue running. And so many people had to drop out because of maybe injury or illness. Their body just wasn't well prepared. And so they did need to stop before they reached the end. Andy Payne ended up winning the race. He was able to run from California to New York, and he won. He won a prize of $25,000. And this race broke the record for being the longest foot race. And so there are bike races and car races and different things like that, but foot race means he actually ran with his feet every single day for almost 3 months, and he won. And this race also won a record. They did put up a statue of Andy in his hometown of Oklahoma to kind of honor him, because this is truly something that this doesn't happen very often, and so it was definitely something that they wanted to remember. Now, here is a map of this blue line is the path that Andy traveled. So here starting in California, and they traveled through all of these different states across the United States until they reached New York over here. And this actually stops a little bit before. So I think it kind of goes up in here and they get up here into New York. So just a little bit farther here. But this is the path that they took during this race. Well, boys and girls, you're going to hear a little bit more about Andy Payne tomorrow as you listen to Mrs. Heater read you the story, The Foot Race Across America. Today, after watching this video, you need to do your Raz Kids assignment just like every Monday. So remember to follow the steps of the assignment your teacher has assigned to you in order to say that your job today is complete. You also have a couple of may-do options today, boys and girls, and one of those may-do options is to create a map of Andy's race. And there is a document in there. It is a read-only document. And it is asking you to draw the race path first. And you can do this on a scratch piece of paper, or if you're able to print out the document, you could do that as well. And then down at the bottom, there are all of the state abbreviations listed for the states that Andy traveled through. And so I challenge you to figure out what state is it by looking at the abbreviation. And when I talk about abbreviation, I'm talking about, instead of saying Minnesota, sometimes you'll see it as MN. And MN is the abbreviation for Minnesota. And so you can challenge yourself and see if you can figure out the other state abbreviations listed at the bottom of that foot race worksheet. The second may-do option that you have today is an online game just practicing the state names in Minnesota. Or excuse me, in the United States, Minnesota being one of those states. But you can practice identifying where the states are located and the names of the states. So boys and girls, I hope that you enjoy this very interesting nonfiction story that you will listen to today. And I will see you next week when we talk about our next story. Have a great day.